Hello, everybody. Uh, Good morning or good afternoon, as the case may be. Hold on one second here. It is November 15th. Let me turn off the music here. It's November 15th. Excited to have you all here today. Excited to talk about my guest and what we're going to be talk about with a CEO of a startup called LoneScale. A little bit about what he's doing and the challenges he faces. Um, Real quickly before I get started, wanted to take a moment and just talk about something really quickly. There's an interesting piece here from Deal Room related to impact startups in 2022, and I just wanted to highlight some of the things because I thought this was a really positive report. Um, and wanted to talk about these a little bit. So, the first thing, some high level takeaways from what we saw with Deal Room. So, it's about impact startups. So, despite the market being down for investments, levels of investment in 22 are still over 2020 levels. European ecosystem is catching up with the UC or the US ecosystem. And finally, climate startups are dominating. And I think this is important. I think we're all concerned about ecology. Just if you look at the size of the market now, so the combined enterprise value is over 2.3 trillion. That's quite a bit. Um, and um, And again, as I was pointing out, it's up over 2020 levels. So that's very interesting. A lot of unicorns, a lot of value has been created out of this. A lot of unicorns. I don't think unicorns in any way, shape, or form should be considered what's healthiest about an IoT or about a venture capital or a startup ecosystem. There's so many other metrics that are far more important than that, like how many companies are being started and the IP they're putting away. But still, I think this is important that a lot of value has been created for that. And then we see that the climate and clean energy are the two biggest ones, which is exciting. I think again, well, I already said that, but we're all concerned about that. What's interesting about this that life below water. I wasn't sure what that was. Is they're looking to put humans below water, but it's just everything about with just the seas, making sure the seas as healthy as possible. And then, of course, there's also more dry powder ready to come out. So 5.1 billion has been socked away to be invested in other things. So I think that's really interesting thing. What's going on and exciting in this marketplace and startups. And I think that's one of the things that interests me a lot in startup and venture capital and entrepreneurs is how much impact it's going to have, how much it can potentially have socially and economically. And this week on Thursday, we're going to have some people, or we're going to have Ronnie Sharabi, who's going to be talking about the work she's doing with women entrepreneurs in the Middle East and North Africa and talking about that impact that they have there. So so hopefully you can make it there. And with that, I'm gonna bring on my guest here. Let me make sure my guest is. Hold on here a second. Let me pull him up here really quickly. Oh, there we go. Okay, I just had the wrong window. No problem. Um, so hold on here. Okay, Alexander, thank you for being so patient. Welcome. Um, first of all, I was doing a little research about Alexander today, and I discovered that he has a Shiba Inu. So that's pretty cool. And he has a very rare Shiba Inu. He has the white Shiba Inu, which is even rarer than the kind of the fox colored Shiba Inu. So I'm actually a little jealous even. Um, how old is your dog? Just out of curiosity. Yeah, yeah, no. Mine is too. He's sleeping right behind. But how old is he? How old is he? 3 years. Okay. Well, listen. So I did a review on your company a little bit for this. So how many people are you today? On your online, it said about 8 people. Is that right? Okay. Okay. And it looks like you have a pretty good mix between men and women. I think it's about 60% and about 40% women, which is pretty good mix in technology.
Of this, but sadly it changed this year.
Yeah.
Maybe this next year we will do better for this.
Okay. Hold on. So, just real quickly, I forgot to turn on your sound a little bit. So I was just saying with Alexander, he has a Shiba Inu like me, and he confirmed that his Shiba Inu was 3 years old. So, and his Shiba is also living the best life. He's asleep right now. Sorry about that. A little technical problem. So okay, so about 8 people, good mix of men and women. Did you make a conscious choice to try and keep a team balanced with men and women, or was that just you found the talented people and they just happened to be men and women?
Second option, we found 13 people and it was the men and women, because I guess at your stage when you are 8 people in company, it's a little bit difficult to have to follow path like this, because it's not, recruiting is one of the most challenge issue, I guess, for all company. And when you are a small team, it's even bigger. So if you find the talent, you take that, mine or woman.
Okay. Yeah, whatever, men or women, antennas. It doesn't matter what they have, if they're human, whatever. It doesn't, just as long as they're part of it. What your title you've listed as co-founder. Who were the other co-founders you started the company with?
It's Jan, my CTO.
Okay, Jan, your CTO. And then you also have a chief data officer, but he wasn't one of the co-founders.
No, he's not.
Okay, so
He came after.
So Jan, your CTO. So how are you getting along a year later, working together, or a couple of years later, working together with Jan? A lot of people can compare being a co-founder and having another co-founder with being married, but
Yes.
it's in some ways it's even more challenging. Is that the case for you?
We have a pretty good relationship, so I guess we can say the case when we have some argument or we are not agree on something, because we are bickering like a non-married couple. But in other case, no, it's pretty simple. I guess main thing for us on when it's for good is when each people has his guideline, or each people working on a matter subject and is like a dictator on it. So Jan is very technical. He's the dictator of technical thing. On me, I have the West. So it's pretty great. We have more trouble, I guess, when we come on other work to see something. So it's like if someone, a stranger, come into your house. So it's not very great. So if we don't do this, the relationship is very good and we are working very well together. So it's very
Okay.
nice.
Okay, so you keep the division of labor. Everybody keeps in their part of the thing there. Interesting. What do you think? What do you think? Since you've been CEO, what are some of the ways you think you've grown as a CEO?
It's a pretty tough question because on so many things. One thing, I guess, is what is a CEO? For most of people, CEO is the top of the company, is the leader of the company, is everything, the person representing the company in public, and etc. etc. For me, I guess my definition of CEO will be a little bit different, because for me, a CEO is the one doing what the other can do. So if you have someone in your team, or maybe your finance, or you have one people in finance, and this people is going to vacation, is going to maternity leave, is going to another company or something like this.
Mm-hmm.
The time when you will replace these people, it's the CEO will take back usually, in a small team I speak. So for me, the CEO is more multitask in the company and is like a firekeeper, because you always go with fire to try to extend it and go further. So it's the first thing. And I guess it's the most challenging, one of the most challenging thing too, because maybe for 10 minutes you will be focused on something, and after 10 minutes you will go for other thing, on 1 hour you will go on other thing, on 1 hour you will go on other thing, and in one day maybe you have 5 or 6 different work. So you have done finance, you have done recruitment, you have done sales, you have done management, you have done etc etc etc. I guess it's one of the most difficult thing on the thing it helps you to grow the most, because you encounter so many different things in one day, and when you work on this thing you always work with your team, so you are learning from your team. So I think it's the two things that me go off the most. And I can say you on what I go on the most, because there is too many things, I guess.
Oh. So you run around putting out fires on any given day. Well, I think last week we actually we had someone who was supposed to come on Thursday and he couldn't come because he had a big fire that he had to put out. So he couldn't make the thing there. What is your day? What is an average day? Do you have an average day? How do you break out your day?
What I try to do nowadays is to keep morning for focus time.
Mm-hmm.
So beginning of the week, I schedule my week. I try to keep focus time for morning on 1 or 2 subjects per morning.
Mm-hmm.
By example, we will focus on sales for morning, on after on finance. So you split your morning into tasks.
Mm-hmm.
And after for afternoon, it's many meetings. So sales meeting, team meeting, management meeting, etc., etc., etc.
Okay.
Investor meeting, etc., etc.
Investor meeting as well. So the mornings tend to be more productive time. And when you're doing that, do you like block your computer so that no one can interrupt you? Are you cautious with your productivity time, or do you do a good job insulating yourself from noise and distractions? Other than your Shiba Inu, I mean.
Yeah, it can be. No, mine Shiba is pretty sage on the day, so it doesn't move so much. He used to,
Yeah.
but for the day, for the morning, yes, I block my agenda.
Mm-hmm.
For blocking my notification, I do very widely this, because a lot of the time when someone asks you a question in my team, it's always often because they have issues and need to fix to move on. So if I don't respond quickly,
Mm-hmm.
I block someone else. I think their time is more precious than mine. So in this case, I prefer give the priority to them and unblock them
Okay.
instead of finishing what I'm communicating, because I will catch back after.
So it sounds like as CEO, you try and be an enabler and to enable your people. That's always a good thing. What do you think? What do you think? What would you tell a younger version of yourself? If you could speak to yourself like before you started this, what would you go back and say to yourself? What would you be? Any advice you'd give yourself?
We have an expression in France. I guess you guess I am French with the pronunciation, but
Okay.
we have an expression in France. Is a sentence is laisser le temps au temps, and in English, I guess, is let time do its work.
Yeah.
I think when we work in startup, or you are young, a little bit hyperactive, etc., you want to go faster and faster and faster, and even faster than you can make, on a lot faster every day. Today, I beginning not yet fully understand it, I acknowledge it, but I'm beginning to understand that sometimes you can rush the time, on you need time, or let some time to see the impact, see the numbers, see the KPI, and see if it's a good decision. You can validate a strategy and decision in 1 week or 1 month. Sometimes you need 2 weeks, 2 months,
Yeah.
1 year, etc. I guess it's the most precious advice I would like to have if I were younger, but I'm not sure if I were younger today, I will listen to it. So
Yeah, that's a really good point. Which is, we have maybe ideas, but we're not sure we would listen. That's a good, interesting. What about, okay? So there's been a shift in the marketplace. There's been a shift in focus by a lot of companies, by investors. So there's more from growth at all cost now to more responsible growth. You raised money, I think, last year on December last year. You raised something like, I think on Crunchbase it says something like 1 million. Um, and so where have you seen pushback from the investors? Are the invest What are they? Have the investors been? Have you felt any pressure from them with the market shifting? Are they telling you to be really careful, or have they given you useful guidance, or what's the feeling there?
I guess the first thing is from March to June, the most of investor did a cash review for their startup
Mm,
because if they didn't do that, there will a lot of chance to fire on they don't want this and we don't want this. So I guess for March, yes, the cash is king. A lot of people say that. Incubator did a great post for this. And it was on months things they did with us on all startup in their portfolio, and it was very helpful. And from the impact of the market that we can see is that I guess investors today are more cautious about how they invest, in which companies they invest, and in which condition they invest. And so it's difficult for a startup to raise money nowadays because it's not there is no investor. I guess if you would like to find money, you will always find money. It's not a problem for this. But the problem is the time you will spend to find money on the different step because before March, if you were at step 5, it was okay. You know your deal will be okay. On maybe even if there is 5 step more,
mm,
it will be closing and it's okay. I guess nowadays you can go to step 8 or 9 and the deal can break. And you will not go on the step 8 or 9 with 3 investor as before, but maybe 5 of 10 of them.
yeah,
So in the startup world, in my startup world, we often say a fundraising is like a full job and you have no life for 6 months. And I guess today it's worse than this on the time spent.
yeah.
So it's for me the big difference in the market nowadays is this is not the you don't find money, you can find money, but it will more time consuming or so more difficult because when you invest your time in fundraising and even more in that, you don't do the rest of your company is needed.
Yeah, so as you're investing all your time in finding investors, you're negliging, you're not being a real manager. You're not actively putting all your effort there. That makes sense. It's, are you guys trying to then avoid that? Are you going more towards a bootstrapping model, or would you just what are your long term plans, or is that something you even want to discuss today?
Your case is pretty particular because for now we extend our runway. We don't need money, and it's okay for us. On normally next year we can be profitable if we wish, but we have big competitor in the US emerging.
Hmm.
So I guess you know the the pitch between US and Europe, and you have more money in US, less money in Europe, etc., etc. So for us, if we don't fundraise next year, it can be quite challenging to follow the speed of the US startup. So it's a tough question. We don't have the solution yet, but maybe we'll go next year. Maybe we will not. We'll see how is reacting, but more our market or our competitor more than the entire market and the economic situation.
Yeah, your company. Do you have a U.S. customers today? Do you have customers in the U.S.?
Yes,
You do. Yeah,
yes, we have some.
because your product looks like a very global product. I mean, it doesn't look like it's necessarily tailored. It's your website's in English. It looks like it was built to go global from day one. So you already have business over there.
Yes, we have.
Okay. Is it challenging to support those customers in the US at all?
A little bit because working sales, when you customer care and do some sales with American and you are not American, it's little bit an handicap. So I guess it's first thing. And the second thing can be the time zone, because if your team is based in Europe and you are working with US, you need to adapt your time zone and be very more responsive with US, because I guess you are more used to than me because you're American, so you know it. But in US, you have an answer in the day. In, for example, for often customer care will respond you in less than 1 hour, and a sales will respond you in a day. In Europe, sometimes you take 1 day, 2 days. So the most challenging thing with US is to follow this rule
Mhm.
with the time zone.
Yeah, that's that. So make sure that you're being reactive, but yeah, if you get something at the end of the day, you know, another 12 hours could elapse, or 16 hours could elapse before you guys get back to it.
Yes, we have often email at um, 12 p.m. or 22 on the evening. So
Yeah.
it's pretty hard sometimes to not respond. Or sometimes we respond, sometimes we say, okay, we will respond tomorrow, but it's pretty hard to sometimes just stand back and say, okay, can wait till tomorrow.
Have you to expand in the U.S.? Are you eventually going to look to build a team over in the United States, a support team in the U.S.?
I guess it
Yeah.
can be a challenge for us. End of next year, we are trying something.
Yeah.
So it will be maybe a subject or maybe not, because until this month we were mainly focused on direct sales. On where you do direct sales, it's better to have a team in every country you are going, because you need to know the culture. Someone is selling with pain, etc., etc., etc. From December, we take part of a product of a platform, and we will integrate into CRM marketplace to distribute it in a self-service way with a different approach. So with no sales. In this case, I guess it will be easier to sales abroad without direct sales. It's our target. And if we are successful doing it, I guess the US team will be less critical that if we still focus on direct sales.
All right. So it sounds like you're shifting a little bit your strategy, more of a product-led strategy, but also including partnering as well. So is you said a CRM platform. Which CRM platform are you going to be working with?
The first one will be HubSpot,
Okay.
because I guess in one of the easier to integrate with,
Okay.
with a great impact. Um, the next one, for now, it's still in reflection.
Yeah. I know that there's a company. I mentioned them in our prep call for this. The one that does all the data reveal. I think it's reveal, and they built an integration on Salesforce, and that was very helpful to them to help grow their business. They're big fans of Salesforce, so that's a really interesting idea. So more of a thing. I was going to ask you about that. Your tool. Let's maybe go back and talk a little bit about what your tool does. So why don't you tell us how LoneScale, what you guys do, and what it does exactly?
Okay. LoneScale is to help you identify your most likely buyers. So the idea of LoneScale is to make an all-in-one platform to fuel buying intents into sales pipeline, into the company pipeline. The idea of it is pretty simple. Is for a company, the sales pipeline is the best source of revenue, but a lot of companies focus on unqualified lead, so they lost a lot of time on a lot of money. Because if you go for unqualified lead, for example, if you focus your sales focus 40% of that time on unqualified lead during a year. So if your sales can handle $1 million pipeline per year, at the 1st January when he begins the years,
Mm,
he had already lost $400,000 beginning the year. So on this statistic is an average for the US. So for the most of B2B companies in the US, they lost 40% of annual revenue in loss pursuit cost, focusing on unqualified lead. So the idea on LoneScale is to detect pay intent, sales trigger event on the web, and to fuel the pipeline with it, to help sales team and marketing team focusing on qualified lead with buying power on the right timing. Example of intent to do this is the first one is track job changes. If you have a great customer with you, working maybe using your product for 1 year, and he moved from one company to another one, it can be a good fit in the new company or a good champion to expand in the new company if you don't work with them already. So you need to detect it
Yeah.
the fast as you can to engage this customer.
Okay.
Par example.
And so, are there triggers? For example, do you, if you have someone who's a customer and helped onboard your solution at another company, and you see that he's changed jobs, you'll automatically get a trigger then when your CRM to say, "Go look at this account," or not necessarily, possibly.
Yes, it's this. You get a trigger in the account. You can automatically put them in an outbound sequences, email sequences, etc., etc.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I know, as someone who's worked in digital marketing before, we often focus on how many leads we're generating. Because that's a great top line number. You're like, hey, look, with our Google ads and our content strategy, we generated X number of leads. But the real question is if that's just noise, if they're not good leads, then really all you're really doing is making work for your sales team. And
Yes.
they're not necessarily generating revenue. And salespeople, they're paid to generate revenue. So, no, that makes a lot of sense. So, how you said you're shifting your sales model a little bit today to more product led, working off integrations. Before, it looks like you were focused. Are you focused mostly on SaaSes and B2B SaaSes? That your ideal client?
Your ideal client nowadays, yes, is more software company with more than 50%
Okay.
in the company, or more than 5 to 10 sales reps. But for contract tracking intent, by example, I guess every business to business company could use it as long as their customer are on the web.
Yeah. Okay. Really interesting. So, yeah, it's just it's a classic thing, and then of course, it's interesting. Yeah, that the quality aspects of leads is just so important. What other things? I spent some time on your website.
You speak of one thing before,
Yeah.
interesting, because you say the economic context change.
Yeah.
So for investor, fundraising, etc. But it changed for acquisition cost too. Because at the beginning of the year, if you spend, as you said, 1 million in Google ads and after have 10 sales to work on this lead, and maybe 50% of these leads were qualified, it was not a problem because you had money was cheap and you will go hire one other sales to work on unqualified lead and continue the process. But know that the customer acquisition costs skyrockets and you cannot continue to spend as much as before. You need to switch from a paradigm of quantity versus quality. And so we are seeing a lot of company coming from the model, they generate thousands of leads every month, coming to, okay, we need to focus on quality lead with intent and do the good work, because if we do this, we'll spend less in acquisition and even we will spend less on the sales because we will need less sales, or if we keep the same number of sales, there will be more focus on closing deal.
Yeah.
And so transforming opportunity into revenue, what is their work, and not working with unqualified lead.
But also, I think the other aspect of it is that if you build a great revenue channel, and you competently execute on your revenue strategy, salespeople become easier to hire because salespeople talk to salespeople and they're like, hey, we got great leads. And then everyone wants to come on board and work for that company. They're like, okay, the product market fit is figured out and we've got good leads. We've got, and so it makes everything else so much easier. As
It's
far
true.
as the hiring practice, and even on the engineering side, when your engineers see that your sales and your revenue team are executing, your engineers are motivated too. Um, there's nothing worse when they see that sales and marketing aren't executed and that they're asking for changes on the product roadmap. That's always really frustrating. Um, what it's what are some other key intent markers? You mentioned a few there, but are there some other ones that really pop out in your mind that people should be looking at? What like
Yes, the second one is a very interesting one because if you speak with a sales team of a company,
Mhm,
you will often see that one or the two top performers of the company are doing the same thing.
mhm,
But the company don't automate the entire process. The
mhm,
thing is to go fetch some buying intent in the job offer.
mhm,
I will give you an example. One of top performer in Europe for aircall was knowing that aircall are good Salesforce integration.
mhm,
The only way to do it was to go on Indeed or LinkedIn job,
mhm,
type recruiting sales and with Salesforce.
mhm.
So he was able to detect which company work on Salesforce or which one are expanding their sales team, so they will need a call. So he had the timing, one of the first motto for salespeople, and the second thing was the pay. And with this, he was able to prospect them or have a way better transformation rate than other people in the same team.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So one of the second intent we have is job by intent. So
Mhm.
fetching intent from job offer, giving you timing on buying power on pen your product solve. And it's a very interesting one because very few companies use this one, but there's so many good way to use this. And the first thing is, I guess, in every sales company with more than 10 to 15 salespeople, often one of the best one of them, uses intent, but it's not scale at the company, as
Yeah.
the entire company. So
Well, I remember doing this years ago, looking for looking for companies that were hiring for IoT. You're like, okay, they're hiring for IoT, and then you try and call in, but this, like you said, this wasn't done at a process level across the company, and that's unfortunate. Um, as a we talk a lot in startup culture and SaaS culture and entrepreneur culture. We talk a lot about acronyms and different statistics or different data that we're using to manage our business. What are the things that are on your dashboard on any given day? What are you paying attention to most as far as like statistics? Do you look at things like churn? Do you look at things? What are the acronyms or for example, average lifetime revenue, or what are you paying attention to most out of curiosity?
mm, um, I guess we check a lot for three things in LoneScale. One is your MR. I guess it's the first thing a lot of startups check for revenue.
Mm,
The second thing is one we are very sensitive to is the ARPU, the average revenue per customer.
mhm.
So it's a good metric for us. And the last one maybe, yes, will be the churn, but we have the chance until now. We have a very, very low churn rate.
Mhm.
So it's not the one we put the most effort on it, I guess.
From a product standpoint, was there thought given to your product when you put it out to be able to grow the revenue on the back end of the products, that you would have an initial sell, but then you would be able to expand out the product and be able to sell more services or raise the average revenue per client?
Yes, we had some use case. At the beginning, we have only the Java intent. So we had the contact tracking on the account enrichment intent.
Mhm.
So today we have three intents. it's helped us to grow the usage and so the revenue on our platform. It's the first thing. And the second thing is with the time our products become more stronger. I
Mhm.
guess for the twin tents nowadays we are maybe not the first in your market in terms of team size or revenue, but I guess we have one of the best, even the best product in the market to do this. So on the stronger one. So with this, it's helped you sometimes to raise your price, going to the new market. And one of the key metric was for us because one of the key thing was beginning of the year, we often saw your first plan, your first or second plan in terms of price range at the first step.
Mhm.
On from last quarter, maybe this summer, we have been have a lot of increasing of the size of the plans that the customer take at the first hand.
Yeah.
So it was a very strong signal for us, very positive one, and we are very happy with this one.
Yeah, we had a few weeks ago we had winning by design on here, and they were talking about the shape of a funnel is a bow tie. So you get your prospects out to your business, and then after that, it should expand out and go grow the revenue out. So it sounds like you guys figured that earlier on. You mentioned customer acquisition cost. Um, how about you? I mean, one of the things at SaaS Talk recently, everyone was talking about customer acquisition costs, and everyone was mentioning that it was out of control. And of course, on top of that, so and that's really a key. That's a big thing for a lot of companies. How do they keep that cost down? So I noticed a lot of people had been moving away from Google Ads. More people were working on more of organic content strategy. I saw that you have an organic content strategy. With the market having changed, is this disadvantageous, the CAC thing? I mean, is it more expensive for you to go get clients, or has it made people more sensitive to what you're presenting and more willing to listen to your value proposition?
Um, I'm not sure for the answer for this, but one I can say on the content part is we begin recently
Yeah.
to build a good content strategy. We will try to execute it well. I think content is very profitable for a company in many ways because you have the acquisition part.
Hmm.
The content can help you to have more leads coming inbound. So if you go do a great SEO, you will spend less in Google Ads, etc., etc. But the content is help you to do many other things than this. The first one, I guess, is help you sell because when you have great content, your sales can use it or you can automate the way to push it to your prospects during the entire funnel. So you can keep with content adding some value on the sales process. And if you would like to keep one touch point for each prospect each week,
Hmm.
which I guess is the best way to do it. If you have content, you can push one week one super content for them, on the next week a good content, on the third week a good content, and so you will keep contact with prospects during the sales process,
Okay.
bringing them value. So it will be good for you too. So not only for inbound, but I guess for sales process. And the last thing is for customer care and etc. It's very good too. We have a lot of customer. We push some articles, some playbook to help us use better LoneScale, but we can use the same playbook with your leads. So and we use the same playbook for acquisition. So I guess content can improve a lot of team work and a lot of process. Ads will just improve your acquisition for time on for some money. So I guess content in the long-term strategy is a way is way more profitable than acquisition with ads.
Yeah, I found that interesting. It was palpable that people, maybe I'm naive or something like that, but it seemed like people were definitely moving away from Google Ads, and they saw that it just wasn't very effective, and that a content approach yeah, I think for a lot of the reasons you just outlined there.
But it's linked to the market, because with Google Ads, if you spend maybe 1,000, you know you will earn 2,000. So if you need to grow faster and faster, Google Ads is the easiest way to do it. If you go for content way, it will take time and money, and it will pay maybe after 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, etc. So if you go for API growth, you need ads.
Mhm. Yeah, really interesting idea. I guess. I guess. And also, I guess if you're going to do Google Ads, I guess it works best as a complement to a strong or content strategy. If you just try and do
Yes.
Google Ads without a content strategy, it's just not going to work very well anyhow. So that makes a lot of sense. Um, we spoken to a lot of founders and CEOs. You look pretty well rested, I have to admit, but a lot of them complain about the toll it takes on them physically and mentally. And I think being at a startup is a little bit like being on a roller coaster. It's kind of an emotional roller coaster, up and down. So, what do you do? I know you have a dog. But what do you do to balance your life on the mental and the physical side? Are you doing anything extra to try and do that? Meditate, or what are your
Mm,
thoughts?
I I guess it's very hard, and I I have not the good recipe for this. We were doing some boxing with my CTO. We were at the same box club,
Mm-hmm.
so it was very nice to go there 1 time a week. But in other case, it's not easy to find a balance and be at your top every day, because in the co-founder position, you need to be at your top every day, because if you are maybe a little bit stressed about something or worried about something, you can share it with your team, because in other case, they will stress and worry too.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want them stressed and worried for nothing. You want them focused on doing their best. So you are a little bit alone on your island. But I guess the most common recipe is have a good personal life. So if you are very stable and have a good personal life, by example, have a dog, it can help you to be more calm and focusing on what matter, and give more chance to split what your time. Because without dog, I was working every weekend. No, I have a dog. 1 time a week, I need to walk it out in the forest. So even on Sunday, I will not work. So I can walk out the dog in the forest 2 hours. So I get one of the best recipe can be have a go
Get a
adopt a
dog.
dog.
Adopt a dog.
Yes.
Okay. So you have to do a minimum amount of walks per day and get out just for the day. That's really interesting. How many? My Shiba Inu hardly needs to go out. He only needs to go out like twice a day. So it's not a dog that needs to walk a lot.
Yes.
He can stay. He's just asleep. He can stay asleep all day long. Uh, he's, uh,
But 1 time a
he's
day,
right.
you don't know why,
He's
for
right
15
back.
minutes,
Yeah.
they become crazy. And they,
Yeah. They run around. Um,
yes, they run around the corner, around the entire space. You don't know why, and they run alone, like full speed.
Yeah, that's in French we say the 15 minutes of craziness. Um,
Yeah.
it's funny in the United States now. Everyone is talking about a dog, as they say, emotional support animal. I just call him my dog, but I guess in a way, an animal can be an emotional support animal. Well, so you mentioned not being able to share things with your employees. So sometimes a CEO, a co-founder, you need to be stoic. You need to you have fires that need to be put out. You're confident you'll be able to put out those fires, but you're also there's background stress. The investors, we don't always want to share everything that's going on with our company with the investors either. Sometimes yes.
Ah, I will stop directly. You directly. For two things. The first thing is we are in LoneScale. In your case, we
Yeah.
are pretty transparent with your team. So they know how many catch we have. They know how many revenue we have, etc., etc. They know everything. So we share this information, but we share this information on a monthly basis,
Mm-hmm.
and for fundraising, etc. Too. And we wouldn't like to avoid them on a daily basis. And if we have a bad news, we try to be able to, I don't know the term in English, but to very precise the range of the news on the bad news, etc.
I,
To
th-
be
I
to have
think
a
that
very good communication on it.
contextualize. We try and contextualize the bad
Yes.
news. Yes. Okay.
Yes, and to have all the criteria on the KPI and the bad news to be sure or we communicate it. So it's why we are doing on sometimes you can have a bad news on Monday. We will communicate it maybe on Wednesday. And for 2 days you have to be stoic as you say, but you will communicate on this bad news, but you just would like to do it well. It's the first thing. The second thing, I guess, uh, for us is one on our mantra is to not hold news from your investor.
Yeah.
We have a monthly report on which share everything. If you have bad news, we share it. If you have concern, we share it. If you're in debt, we share it. We don't want to hold something
Mm.
on in 6 months. They will discover it because you break the
Yeah.
relationship, you
That,
break the trust, and I guess it's not well because you want to understand having you back in any time, and you can't have this if you take back thing from them.
yeah. Yeah. I think the proper term is withhold. If you withhold
Yeah.
information or dissemble, show the wrong information. Well, what about other parties? Do you have resources, like do you speak with other founders or with other CEOs of startups to get advice from third party? Where do you go to get advice other than your co-founder, other than your employees or colleagues, and other than investors? Who are your resources?
Mm, First thing is, I guess we are less good in France to do this because um, I love speak with other founder on exchange about problematic and etc. But I try to do it once a month for the lunch, for example.
Hmm.
But it's difficult to keep it because we are less good, for example, than the US to do this. But what I guess we have in common in France to do this is we use a lot of playbook, a lot of podcast. We have some knowledge sharing between founder.
Hmm.
So if I'm thinking about something and I will have some example, something I have some other and can text and say, okay, we are going for fundraising. Not sure about your pitch deck. Can you share the last one, or etc. etc. Nowadays, it's more easy, I guess, to share. People are less are trust more
Yeah.
other people. We are not in their company than the past. I guess if you go 4 years ago, not too much people share pitch deck for fundraising and share playbooks, sales playbook, etc. etc. Nowadays, it's very more common for my side in case.
That's interesting because the culture. One of the things we've commented about at B2B Rocks and talked about is that the culture that started in Silicon Valley is spreading. And that's true that I have spoken with people in the past in Europe who are reticent to share information. But in the US, kind of very open, maybe too open. And so,
It depends.
yeah,
It depends because this summer we try something because normally I plan a trip to New York, so I try to contact US folk
yeah.
to meet on something like this, and I have zero response. So maybe my message was bad, but in US you
Yeah,
are very open if you have an introduction.
yeah.
If you don't have an introduction for cold approach, even if you are founder to CEO, etc., etc., you don't often answer, or maybe it's because I'm French. I don't
Yeah.
know, but
I don't think being a French is a handicap. I think people are often curious to learn, and an accent I think is often really useful. Um, what about personal development? You mentioned podcasts and playbooks and reading the like. Do you set aside time to feed your brain? And what percentage of time do you set aside for it? I mean, you're working long days, you're working long weeks, so it seems like in order to do that, you have to have a little bit of discipline about that. You can't just make that like, oh, I have 15 minutes free, I'm going to watch a podcast. But I'm just kind of curious, how do you do that?
For podcasts, it's pretty simple.
Mhm.
When I am on a journey
Mhm.
to go to office or something like this, podcast is good.
Okay.
So I guess for podcasts is mainly this, or if you are in car trip and something like this, you can have podcast. I am pretty bad to read books for work. I
Oh.
read a lot,
Oh.
but I am reading a lot other things at work.
Okay.
So on books.
Yeah.
So for this, I don't use many books for work, and I guess it's a mistake, but I booked a lot of books, maybe 50 of them. On every year, I try to book, every month I try to book one or two, and I never read them. So it's in the office, in the case, and it doesn't move. So
That's a
I'm sorry for this, but sorry for myself and sorry for the three I consume for
well.
that. But
Your brain needs to, I mean, you can't just be focused on work and improving your brain all the time. Sometimes your brain just needs free time to just relax and have downtime as well. So you can't focus on that all the time. Um, when you got started
yes.
in France, did you start out? Did your company start out at an incubator, or how did you get started? Would you receive support from French Tech or from any of the local ecosystem, or everything? No, nothing. Okay. How did you guys
No.
get started?
Alone.
Alone.
No, I tried to make a first startup maybe almost 10 years ago when I was still a student. And we went for incubator, we went for French Tech, we went for a lot of things, and it was not a success for us because we spent a lot of time to build some document to send them, etc., etc. And it never worked because I guess in France, often if you want to go in this way, you need to be introduced by your school, by someone, by C, by S. So when we build LoneScale, we
Okay,
decide to
hold on, hold on.
not comply any file.
Okay, so is it because you need credibility? It's the issue of like you don't have enough credibility if you just show up on your own. Do you think it's an issue where they want to see people that are kind of like important people in that sense, or is that why?
I don't think so. I think most common way to do it is the same than when you are in some school and you would like to go to engineer school and commerce school. If you come from the good prep, you will go in. If you come from the bad prep, you have less chance to go in. So I think for incubator, etc., it was the same 10 years ago. I don't know if it's still the same, but the decision for us was simple: is okay, we, will we spend time
Hmm.
on building some documents to go incubate and something like this, and not know if it will be a success, or we will use time to sell. And we decided to sell instead of making documents. So to go for revenue. And for us, it was a good decision. But I guess it depends on your context, what you are doing into. I guess accelerator, incubator are very great.
Yeah.
It's a very good decision to go to them. But for me, we decided not.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I mean, I think there's a great ecosystem here, but it's interesting to hear your take on that. And it sounded like you guys just you tried that one time, and then the next time you just tried to do things on your own, and it seems like you've gotten further this way. Um, a lot of people when they go to do a startup, one of the things they have trouble with is meeting a co-founder. So oftentimes there's one person who's either strong technically or strong in a marketing, sales marketing background, a revenue background. But usually they're missing the other person. How did you meet your CTO? How did you two meet?
I hunt him.
Yeah. You you hunted him. Okay, I like that.
Yes, on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn. So okay, so you went and you contacted him on LinkedIn, and what was your sales pitch? What were you like? Hey, I have a great idea. You need to join me. We'll conquer the world. What was your sales pitch?
Um, I don't remember it well, but the idea was I identified maybe 15 to 20 people
Yeah.
fitting the possibility to do it together. On I go for them. On I go very good fit with Jan. We maybe speak for from 3 to 6 months
Yeah.
before doing something together. We try to work a little bit together. It was a great fit, and so we go full on.
Great. Oh, that's incredible. I think because that's one of the biggest challenges people made. Like, there's a lot of, especially I think it's more often that you have someone with a sales and marketing background that's looking for someone technical.
Yeah,
And,
but
yeah.
the best recipe for this is go work on a scale up, because if you work maybe 1 year or 2 years on scale up, then we go to the next process phase and we'll encounter a lot of people in the startup world. So we'll encounter people can be co-founder, and when there will be a next phases, a lot of them would like to leave.
Mhm.
So it will be the right time to find your co-founder, I guess.
Yeah, that's often the case. I think about um, Twilio right now. I don't know if you know Twilio, but they did a big layoff, and I was just thinking about there's going to be so many companies that start up from the people that got laid off at Twilio.
Yes.
There's a lot of talented people there that made a lot of money, and they're going to be like, oh, okay, let's go. I want to go do my own startup now and see if I can do it. So in a way, I kind of think of like our industry a little bit of like seasons. You have spring, summer, fall, and winter. And so maybe we're in fall right now, maybe we're going towards winter, but this will just start a new cycle and a new season, and every year they get more advanced. So you went and hunted your CTO down. You went and found him. That's inspiring, because I think that's one of the biggest challenges for a lot of people, especially revenue centric people. Is where did they find the technical person to build some of this? Um, about that. So you found your CTO. What about hiring? Hiring. Had you ever hired before you started your company? Had you ever?
Yes.
You had. So you had some experience hiring.
Yes.
But do you consider hiring? I mean, for me, it would be rather nerve wracking to hire, because it's really important that you find the right fit and the good person. So, is that a big challenge for you, or how do you think about hiring?
Um, I think the big challenge is to find the candidates and bring them in your hiring process, because it's the sourcing of the candidate as the right candidate, and after when they're in the hiring process is to convert them to come with you. I guess it's a two big step in the process for us. The hiring process in terms of meetings, etc., was more easy for us because we did some scorecard, we have very good template interview, etc. So it was not a very pain for us, but the most thing was to find the right people.
Hmm.
Success to bring them during the interview process.
Okay. Um.
And it's a trouble for a lot of people, I guess, because in other case, headhunter will not exist.
Yeah. And what about? I mean, I think these are big stereotypes, but I have to be careful here. But in the U.S., we often this is again a big stereotype. I'm going to qualify this. I think in France, people tend to look more at your resume or your CV. They tend to look at what you've already accomplished. Um, e- Especially the more senior the role, they're going to look at more of what you've accomplished. But I think there's more of an you put more of that emphasis in France. What have you accomplished? Us, it's more of what's your potential, what's your motivation. Um, do you have a perspective on that?
I guess you are right for big company in France, more older company, but for startup, no, it's more potential.
Yeah. So you really look at
So we were. Yes, we looked for potential on it, etc. We didn't look for experience.
So personal culture, make sure the culture fits, and potential.
Yes. Yes. In your case, we didn't ask your resume. We take only LinkedIn profile, by example. So
Really interesting. Are there anything else you'd like to share with our audience? Anything spontaneously that comes from you? Any thoughts that you maybe thought of while you were preparing for this?
mm, okay, for me, I don't know if you have any question yet, or the audience have any question
No,
for us.
I didn't see any questions. They seem pretty calm today. It seems gray here, so it may be my little bit sleepy. Well, listen. What's your Shiba's name? What's your dog's name?
Simba.
Simba. Okay. Well, listen. I hope I get to Paris soon. I can introduce my dog to yours.
Yes,
That'd be great. Thank you very much for your time. I know you're very busy. You've got a lot of stuff going on. Thank you very much for sharing your audience, and hopefully we'll check in with you guys and see how you're doing in a couple months or 6 months or a year from now.
perfect. Thank you for the invitation, Steve. See you.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.
Oh, uh, interesting guy. Interesting company. Of course, really focused. As you have to be with a startup, really focused on execution and getting things done. Be interesting to keep an eye on this company and see where they are soon. Later in the week, on the 17th, on Thursday at 1 p.m., we're gonna have Ronnie, uh, um, Ronnie, on zapping her last name, Ronnie Shuriba on, and we're gonna be talking about kind of the role of entrepreneurship and SaaS in the Middle East and North Africa and what they're doing to empower women there. I think it should be really interesting. It's interesting because not only are they empowering women, but they're also building bridges across different social economic cultures. I look forward to seeing you there on Thursday. So hopefully you'll have some time and you can check in with us. Everybody, have a great day. Bye bye. There it is, empowering men and women with entrepreneurship. See you then. Bye bye.